Hello and welcome to the Lane Cassette Podcast. Today, life gets hard as we cover No Holds Barred, the first feature film starring the one and only Hulk Hogan. But before we can take a look at this movie and what went into making it, we must take a look at Hulk Hogan and how he got here, and the movie's other executive producer along with Hogan, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Now, I've asked TeeKay to join me on this one because growing up, TeeKay was the biggest Hulkamaniac I knew.
I had toys. I had the wrestling pillows. It was a great time in life, especially for me and my dad. He was a huge Undertaker fan, and it was just a constant rivalry in our household. Me being a Hogan fan, and it was a great time in wrestling culture.
Oh, definitely was. Time that unfortunately we can never go back to.
Unfortunately, not.
Hogan started his wrestling career being trained by the legendary Hiro Matsuda in Florida. And actually, in Hogan's book, he tells the story of his first day. Matsuda broke his leg to test how bad he wanted it, I guess, because back then they really put you through the paces to see how bad you wanted it before they let you in on the, hey, it's all bullshit thing. Hogan made his pro wrestling debut August 10th, 1977 against Brian Blair after training for more than a year. Hogan had several personas as he bounced around the various territories, such as the Super Destroyer, Sterling Golden, and Terry Boulder. Terry Bollea then went to work for Vincent J. McMahon in late 1979. Now, Vincent J. is obviously the father of Vincent K., the one we all know and loathe or love. Vincent J. then named Terry Bollea Hulk Hogan and made him a heel. That's wrestle speak for bad guy. And at the time, most of the characters were made for different ethnic groups up in the WWWF, as it was called. Bruno Sammartino was for the Italians, Pedro Morales for the Puerto Ricans, Ivan Putski for the Polish, so on and so forth. And Hogan was for the Irish. He tells a story Vince wanted him to dye his hair red, but he was already going bald and just figured no, he would just be a blonde Irishman. Now, he wrestled in the old WWWF for several years. Then he had a chance that would alter his career and life. He was offered a role in the Rocky franchise, playing a wrestler who had an exhibition against Sylvester Stallone's titular character. However, Vincent J. did not want him to take the role, and Hogan did, despite the elder McMahon saying he could no longer work for him if he did. Just kind of funny because there's a movie, The Wrestler, that came out in 1974 that Vincent J. had a cameo in. And that movie was made by Vern Gagne, who was the owner and star of the AWA territory, which was up in Minneapolis, Chicago, basically the Midwest. Hogan then went to Japan and then the AWA, which was owned and run by Vern Gagne, of course. Now, Hogan attributes Gagne to helping him come up with the many trademarks of the Hulk Hogan character we all know, and most of us love, such as the no-selling, the Hulk up, the pandering to the crowd. Hogan was the biggest babyface in the AWA until 1983. He also had disputes with Gagne, such as Gagne making and selling Hulk Hogan t-shirts and not giving Hogan any of the money. Gagne also wanted to take a big chunk of Hogan's money from Japan tours. Now, Hogan wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Vern Gagne, Greg was his son, but Vern was loyal to All Japan Pro Wrestling. Think of that as like the Japanese WWF versus WCW from like the 90s. So Vern was pissed, and I guess he figured if he got some of Hogan's money, it'd all be fine. And Vern also refused to put the AWA title on him, despite the fans wanting it and it being the best call for business. If anybody out there is so inclined, if you Google Super Sunday 1983, it's one of the first things that pops up. Hogan Winkle for the AWA title. And he comes out to Rocky 3, and my God, does the place go crazy for him. I'll have to send you that. You've never seen that link. You've never seen that, have you, TeeKay?
No, I haven't. No, I'd love to see it though. I haven't seen too much of Hogan before his red and yellow debut.
I'll have to send it to you after we get done here. I mean, even if you don't watch the match is what it is. It's not bad, but to see this is a different Hogan than those of us who grew up watching him, remember. But he gets quite the reaction. It's really something.
I wonder why Vince Sr., the oldest Vince, I wonder why he wouldn't want Hogan. Did it ever mention why he didn't want him in the Rocky franchise? I thought that would be good for business.
Hogan didn't really say in the book, and it is weird because Vince was in that other movie I mentioned. I don't know why. I've never really heard a good reason. Maybe he just figured he'd leave wrestling, which is kind of how Vincent K got involved in No Holds Barred.
I can understand that if he's afraid of him becoming a movie star, but then once you watch No Holds Barred, it's a different story.
Yeah, that's for sure. But in 1982, Vincent K WWF from his father, and he had big plans. You see, up until then, wrestling was separated into various territories in North America. The WWF had Maine, New York, Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland. The AWA kind of had Indiana to California, but his strongest foothold was in like the Dakotas, Minneapolis, and WCCW in Texas. Stampede in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which was owned by Bret and Owen Hart's father, Stu Hart, just to name a few. Now, Vincent K wanted to take his newly crowned WWF nationwide, and he knew the man he wanted to be his marquee star, Hulk Hogan. It's often been rumored that if it wasn't Hulk Hogan, it would have been Superfly Jimmy Snuka or Kerry Von Erich, who wrestled in the WCCW. But I think, looking back, he made the right choice.
Absolutely.
And he offered Hogan a deal to come back to the WWF, which he did. But he also left Verne Gagne high and dry in the process, leaving with little notice and no showing the AWA show on Christmas night in 1983, where he was scheduled to face AWA champion Nick Bockwinkel in a steel cage match. However, Hogan wasn't the only one to do so. Jesse the Body Ventura, Mean Gene Okerlund, Dr. D. David Schultz all did the same, leaving with little to no notice. The only one who didn't was Bobby the Brain Heenan. Heenan fulfilled all his contractual dates before leaving the WWF, or actually scheduled dates. I don't think they had contracts back then. That's how Vincent K was able to swoop in and get all these guys.
Lucky for him.
And anyone who knows the history knows that Vince tried to take all the territories, top guys, but he took particular delight in fucking Verne Gagne. I'm not sure why, but he loved fucking over Verne for some reason.
That's a cutthroat business. There's probably some underlying factor in there.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Now, Hogan won his first WWF World Championship on January 23rd, 1984, defeating the Iron Sheik, who was a former trainee of Verne Gagne, in Madison Square Garden. Over the next few years, Vincent K. McMahon and his new star took the wrestling world from the dark, this is one of Vince's favorite quotes ever, the dark, smoke-filled bingo halls to arenas. And Vince made it into a juggernaut made for kids with toys, Saturday morning cartoons, primetime NBC specials, t-shirts, cereal, ice cream bars, bedding, and anything else you could slap the WWF logo or Hogan's face on. On February 5th, 1988, Hogan lost the WWF Championship for the first time in 4 years to Andre the Giant in the famous twin referee finish. Now that, for people who haven't seen it, is referee Earl Hebner was signed to the WWF, and his brother Dave was already a referee there, and they're twins. So that's allegedly the $1 Million Man paid for plastic surgery to get the Hebners to look alike.
Oh, God.
And they continue the storyline in the magazine, but DiBiase then tried to buy the title off of Andre, but WWF figurehead Jack Tunney then declared that the title was vacant and a tournament was held at WrestleMania 4, which was held on March 27th, 1988 at Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Macho Man Randy Savage won the tournament and the WWF title. Now, the reason for this was to get the title off of Hogan so he could go film No Holds Barred without having Hogan lose clean, which would be like no fuckery if Andre just beat him 1, 2, 3. Hogan would then beat Savage at WrestleMania 5 to regain the title a year later. Now, according to Hogan's autobiography, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, which was released in 2002, which is a shame during all the juicy tidbits we could have gotten 17 years later from working with... Oh, yeah, like that's... It seemed like all the scandal and all that shit was behind him, but no, not so much. From working with Shawn Michaels to Hogan Knows Best to making amateur movies with Bubba the Love Sponge's wife. He was originally set to make No Holds Barred with New Line Cinema, but Vince insisted on making it with him as Vince was afraid that Hogan, who was the golden goose at the time, would leave the WWF and go make movies full time, as you alluded to earlier. I don't think he had those fears like you said after seeing that.
Yeah, it kind of dwindles off after you see what the movie was really like. You're just, I mean, granted, it was a wrestling movie. He could have done any kind of movie, but good Lord.
You're right. But this is another funny tidbit. Hogan also claims that he and Vince spent 3 days rewriting Dennis Hacken's script because, as Hogan said, it sucked. I really wonder what it was like before they rewrote it.
Holy shit. Never knew that. I really wish I could see an unedited script of what it would have been before they had fucked with it.
Now, Hogan's known as kind of a bit of a bullshit artist sometimes, but I believe that because anyone who's watched WWF or WWE for any length of time knows that there is a ton of Vince McMahon in this movie, especially the bathroom humor. Vince loves that shit. To this day, he still fucking loves bathroom humor.
It's good to a point, but holy shit, there's a lot of it in No Holds Barred.
The first time I watched it for the podcast, I had to shut it off and walk away for a while, and I'll tell you where I had to do that at. But
I think I have a pretty good idea if it's what I'm thinking.
Oh, probably. We'll get there. I'll point it out when it happens. Hogan also says he came up with the final fight between him and Zeus while on the can, which is kind of apropos. I mean, that's kind of...
It's a very weird... That's a very weird place to be thinking of, like, grappling with another man while you're taking a shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you can come up with all sorts of similes to shit in this movie.
Yeah, there's plenty of it, that's for sure.
He said he recited it back to Vince, and he also says as soon as he and Vince saw Tiny Lister in the auditions, they both knew right away that he was the right guy. Lister even wore lifts in his shoes to appear taller than Hogan, as they are the same height in real life. Joan Severance was cast as Samantha Moore, Kurt Fuller as Brell, who's the head of the rival network to lure Rip away from his current contract, Mark Pellegrino as Rip's younger brother Randy, and we have various wrestlers and wrestling personalities that I'll point out as we meet them in the film. The movie was filmed in Atlanta during the spring-summer of 1988, and Vince made it under the Shane Distribution Company banner, which is the name of his son, and that company would eventually become WWE Studios years later. They eventually made a deal with New Line to distribute the film. No Holds Barred was released June 2nd, 1989, and it grossed $16 million during its theatrical run against an $8 million budget. So they usually say you have to make 3 times what you put into the movie to make your money back, so it's kind of safe to assume that they didn't make it back. And 1989 was a stacked summer. I mean, you had Batman, which was the very first movie I reviewed in the podcast, and you had Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. You had Ghostbusters. I mean, that was a stacked summer.
Still incredible, though, that they actually doubled their money, regardless if you have to make triple to make your money back. For that movie, for what it was to make double what it put into it, that's incredible.
I'm sure they've made even more of it back now because they've kind of embraced it as like one of those, worst movies ever made type of things.
Oh, so people have to see it to see how bad it is.
Yeah, and they, have it on Blu-ray, which I'm surprised. I have the WWE Network, but it's not on the network. I think it should be, but maybe since New Line was the distributor, they still have to get their money in it somehow. But if he can, they should put that shit on the network.
Yeah, there's probably some litigation where people feel they won't get paid if they put it on someone else's network.
And Vince, this is getting ahead of it a little bit because we are going to cover a little bit of Hogan's post-run after the movie, but Vince, while Hogan was wrestling for WCW in 1997, Vince made a quip on Raw because since WCW was owned by the Turner Network companies, he did movies made for TV movies and stuff like that while he was in WCW, and they were taking shots at him, and Vince said that Hogan promised him if they didn't make a profit on No Holds Barred, he would give him part of his salary back. And then Vince said, well, I guess the check is still in the mail. Like 8 years later.
What an asshole.
Right. And there's actually a funny story because Vince asked him for part of his salary back after the movie bombed, and Hogan said, no.
It's pretty interesting since Vince McMahon pretty much writes his check. Wouldn't Vince McMahon just... would it cause too much bad blood? Be like, hey, I'm taking this out of your check because that's what you told me.
Probably. We'll get to it in the after the movie when we talk about his run, like after this. But they weren't on the best of terms when Hogan left in '93, and even before that. But are you ready to get into this piece of shit?
Oh, let's do this.
All right. We open up hearing the voices of Mean Gene Okerlund and Jesse the Body Ventura bantering over the opening credits. Then we hear Howard Finkel introduce Jake Bullet, who was played by Bill Eadie, who wrestled as Axe in the popular tag team Demolition. Did you know that? Do you know much about Demolition?
Demolition doesn't sound familiar, but Jake looks like an athletic Tim Curry from Rocky Horror Picture Show with that fucking eyeshadow on.
Yeah, Demolition. They were kind of like the WWF's Road Warriors Legion of Doom ripoff before they got them.
Okay.
That was kind of what their deal was. They came to the ring in like bondage gear. I'll have to send you either look them up, just Google Demolition WWF, or I can send you a picture. They definitely dress interesting.
All right, so they're in bondage gear, thoroughly driving home the fact that he probably looks like an athletic Tim Curry from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, only they had face paint.
Oh, that kind of ruins it a little bit.
Yeah, do you remember Crush?
Oh, absolutely. I remember Crush. Crush was one of my favorites.
He was in Demolition like later on when he was either they were Axe and Smash, and then Crush came in. One of them was hurt, and Crush came in to just take the spot. But we then see some doors open, and we see the silhouette of our hero and hear him making grunting noises and such like he's a caged animal.
Totally turns into the Toxic Crusader the second you see him. He's like, making these weird fucking grunting noises. Like, holy shit, man. I've never heard so much grunting, screaming, and heavy breathing in a movie that wasn't a porno in my life.
Right. It's quite something. He walks down the ring with his brother Randy and manager Charlie. He screams, "Rip 'em!" on his way to the ring. What exactly are we ripping? Music, t-shirts, bongs, what?
And he does that fucking surfer thing with his fucking hands. Like, all right, Hogan, just calm the fuck down.
Oh, that is quite something. And Rip is here wearing all white and has a very over-the-top cartoon facials, kind of like Hogan, the regular Hogan.
I was more distracted by that Cleopatra wig that Jesse Ventura is wearing. What the shit is that?
Yeah, right. Who the fuck knows? I mean, Jesse, I've watched some of the old stuff on the network with him and Heenan commentating, and Jesse was always wearing weird shit. I had no idea.
I seen him on an episode of Piers Morgan like 6-7 years ago, and he was wearing this Native American jacket with all these feathers on it. I'm like, what the fuck, man? What are you wearing?
He's a trip. Have you ever listened to Joe Rogan's podcast?
Not lately, but oh yeah, I've listened to quite a bit of Joe Rogan.
He was on Rogan's podcast a few years ago, and wow. Just not even the way he was dressed, but talking. Jesse's a fucking trip.
He's hilarious, man. I used to watch him a lot on conspiracy theory. They're trying to hurt a former Minnesota congressman, or what the fuck, a governor. They're trying to hurt the governor of Minnesota.
Right. He's like saying he's off the grid, but he's still appearing on TV. And okay, Jesse.
I know, seriously, just get your shit together, man.
And Rip has what we wrestling fans know as the Winged Eagle title belt that was carried by Hogan, Savage, all the way through to Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. Last one by Stone Cold Steve Austin when he beat Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14 in 1998. However, this one has a white strap instead of the traditional black strap, meaning in today's WWE, that would make Rip the women's champion, as all the women's titles have white straps.
I will say it was really nice to see the Winged Eagle belt. That was always my favorite WWF title. And I kind of like the white to it, but there's nothing that beats the black. But it was still a cool belt to see.
Oh, it was definitely cool to see. And the Intercontinental Championship does have a white strap as well. They kind of went back to the look of the one that like Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon and all them guys had. But we see some TV executives watching while Bullet has Rip in a sleeper hold. And this is where I should mention before I forget that in a lot of wrestling movies, even that wrestling movie, The Wrestler I mentioned from 1974, I watched it on YouTube because it's free on YouTube. You can find it on Amazon for like $5. It's interesting if you want to watch it. It's not particularly good or well made, but it's just interesting. They acknowledge the public's skepticism that it's fake. And Ready to Rumble, which came out around 2000, acknowledges it's fake. This movie doesn't really, like, it's real. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I noticed that whenever the executives are watching it, like, they're watching it hardcore, like, oh, yeah, got him. Like,
yeah.
What? Are they really trying to drive home that it's still real?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in this universe, wrestling's real. I mean, the Wrestler in 1974 portrayed it as that too, but they at least they acknowledged that it was fake. Like, look, Vern Gagne and like Bruno Sammartino and all those old guys, they said that it was real all the way till their dying day. And that's, it's kind of silly and stupid because we all know that it's fake, but that's not the way they were brought into the business. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Fair enough. And I can understand their viewpoint because, I mean, to them, it is real. It's just athletic, like full contact, like gymnastics. Like, that's pretty much what it is. And to them, if you think about it like that, it is real.
Yeah, I can definitely understand. And now Rip is about to be asleep in the sleeper until he sees his brother flashing his rip 'em hand signal, and he rips up, I guess. And he wins with a double axe handle.
Back when double axe handles were actually finishing moves.
Yeah, now, I want to mention this. I forgot earlier. We did see him, rip his shirt like Hogan would rip his shirt. How many times did you try to rip your shirt like Hogan did when you were a kid? Because I tried countless times.
Oh, I tried a lot. I tried too many times, and all I did was just stretch the neck out.
Yeah, my mom would ask me every once in a while, why are these shirts stretched? Like, oh, I'm just trying to be Hogan. The head of the TV executives is pissed because his network, the World Television Network, is in last place in the ratings, and he wants that jock ass, as he calls him, all throughout this movie, on his network.
Why does he keep... Oh, my God. I've never heard a stupider fucking name to call somebody other than, like, jock ass? What?
If I had to bet my life on it, I'd say that was a Vince McMahon line.
If that's a Vince McMahon line, holy shit, is he terrible at humor.
Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, like I said, he's in his mid-70s and he still has the same humor, and it's just not good.
I mean, he does have some good moments, very few and far between. And if that was a Vince McMahon line for jock ass, calm it down, take a seat.
Yeah, I would bet it is. I don't know for sure, but if I had to put my money on it, I'd say so. Now, this would all seem very familiar come 1994, as Turner was able to lure. Hogan wasn't working for the WWF in '94, but Eric Bischoff offered him a hell of a deal to go to WCW. Maybe we'll cover that in another Hogan movie. Thunder in Paradise is out there, and that would be the time to cover that extensively.
I've never seen Thunder in Paradise.
I haven't either. I've seen like some clips from shows on YouTube, and yikes. Now, it was great to see Howard Finkel, the ring announcer, and the referee in this is the son of Gorilla Monsoon, Joey Morella, who was tragically killed in a car accident in 1994. The next morning, Brell meets with his team and shoots down all of their ideas for new shows, and he just wants Rip. And Brell tells Miss Tidings to take a leak, whatever the fuck that is supposed to mean.
I paused the movie and had to write that down. I was like, did he just tell her to take a piss?
Yeah, I'm guessing it was code for something, but
I guess maybe it was an old term that isn't used anymore, but leak in nowadays is, I'm going to go take a piss.
You know what I should have done is I should have kept a tally of bathroom humor in this movie. I didn't, but, it would have been a good drinking game.
Oh, you know what? We'll have to try that.
Yeah. Maybe whenever you come up to visit, just get fucked up watching No Holds Barred.
You take a shot every time you hear the word jockass.
We wouldn't even get through before we passed out.
Oh, yeah. We'd be quarter way through the movie and already tanked.
Yeah. Now, one member says Rip is already under contract to another network when Brell says he wants him. So apparently he has a contract with a network and not the World Wrestling Federation. Don't get that, but Brell says contracts are nothing but words, which is the most Vince McMahon line ever. I have 100% confidence he wrote that line for sure.
I totally agree with you on that. I was like, contracts are nothing but words and courts and fines. Like, come on. Let's be real here.
Right. We see Rip getting out of a limo in black and red spandex. No doubt a precursor to the NWO Wolfpack look. Now, and fingerless gloves, complete with his trademark do-rag, which is just a Hogan trademark.
Yeah, that's a Hogan original right there, no matter what color it is.
Yeah. Now, Brell tells Rip to take a seat in his Louis XIV made chair. Brell passionately makes his pitch and gives Rip a blank check and tells him to just fill in the amount. Brell pushes and screams when Rip tries to leave and calls him the jock ass again.
Take another shot.
Yep. And Brell, his two stooges, and Rip share a laugh before Rip shoves the check in his mouth, quipping, "I won't be around when the check clears." Which I guess would be another bathroom humor, meaning when he shits it out.
This part of the movie, dude, Brell is all over Hogan. The second he walks in, like, he's grabbing his arm. When he's threatening him, he's like touching his chest. He's grabbing his arm, steady groping Hogan. Like it's very uncomfortable looking. Even Hogan looks at him when he grabs his arm. He's like, okay, this fucker just touched me again.
Yeah, I noticed when he grabbed his arm, but I didn't notice all the other times. I'm going to have to look at that if I ever watch this again.
If you ever watch it again.
And my favorite part is when he flashes his little rip 'em hand gesture before walking out the door.
Just to seal the deal.
Yeah, take time to pose.
Fuck your check, rip 'em.
Now, Rip's limo driver was apparently replaced with a new limo driver who attempts to kidnap Rip. Now, Rip tries to tear apart the limo, kicking the doors and all the fixtures inside. Now, the driver inexplicably loses control of the limo because Rip is kicking the doors in the back seat of the limo before he pulls into an empty warehouse area. Rip comes crashing through the roof and beats the fuck out of the thugs waiting there to jump him.
Seriously, a full-on Hulk moment. Like, I thought I was watching Lou Ferrigno from the fucking Hulk show. He just comes busting out of this fucking limo. He's just, oh!
It's like, couldn't he do that in the first place to get out?
I know, right? And this limo is fucked up by the end of this journey. Like, is he really going to drive that spastic? I've never had anybody try to kick my door out before, but I have a feeling that it wouldn't be that hard to drive that car in that kind of, condition.
Yeah, I might turn around and be like, what the fuck are you doing? But
Like he's driving in the left lane, he's ripping through he's ripping them. He's ripping through fucking toll booths or like little booths that are like at this little foundry place. Like, what the fuck, man? You can't drive for shit.
right? I would argue that Rip just about commits murder on all these fuckers. Now, he then tears the limo door off and grabs the driver, making snarling noises, and the driver whimpers like a little bitch. Rip smells something and, in a very over the top way, asks what the smell is, and the driver responds that it's Dookie.
I fucking laughed at this part. He is snarling at this guy, and you just hear, "What's that smell?" Dookie.
Yeah.
Dookie. What fucking dialogue is this?
That's a Vince McMahon original right there. And that's the line.
Painful.
Yeah, that is the line that convinced me that Vince did write this fucking movie. I mean, this is where I had to turn it off and walk away for a bit. I was like, I don't know if I can do it.
Like, it was hilarious, but it was so hard to just keep a straight face and be like, okay, I'm gonna finish this movie.
Yeah, I can deal with like the bad acting, and I think Hogan has a couple nice moments in this movie, but I can deal with the bad acting. But the Dookie, holy fuck.
Yeah, that was hard to stomach.
Now we go to a meeting between Rip and some of his PR people, and we meet Samantha Moore, who looks like she could have played Heather Langenkamp's sister on A Nightmare on Elm Street if she had had one. Like, seriously, that's all I kept. To me, she looked just like fucking Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street, only a little older.
Never made that connection until you just mentioned that. That's a really good point. That's funny.
It was like almost distracting to me. I was just expecting to see the glove and hear the Freddy song, but no such luck.
Dude, Hogan is steady staring at Samantha too, like a thirsty, fucking horny 20-year-old putting that pussy in the lion tamer.
Oh, he is. She tries to go over some things during her presentation, and Rip is just thinking about ripping her clothes off. And Rip tells her in the third person that his main interest is his charity work, and he would rather talk about this all later, which is kind of strange because this is a business meeting.
Right. Yeah, let's just, I see you've all been here and you were all called to do this meeting, but let's do it later.
Right.
This isn't how this works, bro.
She tells him she will pick him up at 8 for dinner, which kind of takes him aback a little bit. And then we go to a fancy French restaurant. The waiter's a total dick to Rip and says Rip is probably looking for a hamburger or a foot-long hot dog.
Dude, I would have curb stomped that fucker trying to talk to me like that. Le hamburger, le ball kick. Keep fucking with me, Pierre.
Right. And then we learn, to our surprise, and the waiters and Sam's, that Rip is actually a regular at this place. All the kitchen staff come out to talk to him, and so Rip's got depth. Now we go to a dirty-looking bar with some guys fighting, someone getting tattooed, and just all kinds of nasty shit. Brell and his stooges appear, and they ask the nasty-looking and sounding waitress for a seat. Now, a young-looking Peter... Did you know this was Peter Dinklage sitting in a cage above Brell's table? The midget in the cage?
I knew he looked familiar. No, I didn't know that was him.
I didn't know till I looked it up online, but yeah, that is Peter Dinklage.
Holy shit, man.
He would go on the heights unforeseen.
Oh, yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Now, we see wrestling legend Stan Hansen portraying a dumb-looking redneck, and we can see the chew he has every time he opens his mouth. Now, Stan Hansen was a good friend of Hogan's, and Hansen's an all-time legend in the rings of Japan, and he actually was one of Bruno Sammartino's opponents, and Stan Hansen actually is the one who broke Bruno Sammartino's neck in the 70s. He went to give him some move, and he gave it to him weird and dropped Bruno, and yeah. But Brell offers him cash to fight the winner of the fight that we're watching. He does and wins, busting open a keg afterwards and pouring the beer on himself and in his mouth. Kind of a primitive stone-cold beer bash. Stooges 1 and 2 head to the bathroom, and it's a nasty-looking son of a bitch with one of the trough urinals overflowing. The two joke about how stupid and low class everyone is in a cartoonish fashion, and this is everything that Vince thinks about a certain segment of the population, namely ones below the Mason-Dixon line. And they panic when they hear over-the-top shitting, and it's the Neanderthal, as Stan Hansen is credited. Now he goes to fuck with them and sees they have teeny wainers, and it isn't even worth it.
And I've noticed on the bathroom before they walk in, it says the VD room, like venereal disease. Like I was, what does VD stand for here exactly?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It would have to be something along them lines, I'm sure.
As you see the pisser filled with dookie.
Yeah, I mean, that just, like, there's no need. There was no need. The next morning, Brell announces a new show to debut. Brell loves seeing all these fuckers, and I do have to say that for me, this is a little early, but Brell, he's the MVP of the movie. No matter what stupid shit he's doing, he's entertaining.
This is true. As much as you hate him, you gotta give it to him. He's a strong bad guy in the movie.
Yeah, and he does some real deplorable things that we'll get into. But the next morning, he announces a new show to debut the next month called Battle of the Tough Guys. Open to any red-blooded male, sexist much, that can beat all of his opponents. And the reward, if you win, is $100,000 tax-free. I wonder if Erwin R. Shyster would approve.
Battle of the Tough Guys is like the 80s televised version of bum fights.
Yeah, it was an interesting concept. You had to give him a legitimate tough guy to fight, to overcome. So I get it, but we get back to the same bar for the first week of the Battle of the Tough Guys, and we see some of the competitors, and they are definitely trying to say something about a certain lower class segment of the population. Brell welcomes everyone to the competition, and we get a montage of everyone fighting. And it's all one-on-one, of course. And then we see the big door in the upstairs of the bar come crashing down, and everyone's attention is drawn to it. A big motherfucker picks up a waitress by her head and drops her down to the second floor when she tries to get in his face about something. Everyone is aghast at this man, and Brell says to let him fight. He then proceeds to beat the fuck out of all the competitors. And then we cut to a huge mansion, and Rip, Charlie, and Randy, and a female acquaintance of one of them watching the show on the smallest TV I have ever seen for an alleged multimillionaire. Like, it was distracting how small that fucking thing was.
Go back to that bar, man. Where the fuck did that door come from? What is it doing there?
Yeah, it makes no sense, doesn't it? Because even when they show them coming in, like, earlier, they're coming down, like, whenever they first go to the bar, they're coming in at the ground floor.
Like, I was actually trying to put logic behind it. I was like, maybe it's where they're distribute, like the beer truck comes in to drop the shit off. I was like, but why the fuck? Why is it that big and why is it up there? It makes no sense. And that fucking unibrow,
distracting.
It is highly distracting because it's lopsided.
Yeah, apparently he did that himself.
I'll keep that comment to myself.
There is some shoot interviews on YouTube where he does go into how he got the role and things like that. And he allegedly, according to him, got the shit, meaning steroids, from Hulk and Vince for him to bulk up for this role.
Oh.
They were legal then at that point, though. I mean, I think that the laws to make them illegal started around 88, 89, and by like 91, 92, they were totally illegal to have, use, anything.
I mean, I guess fair enough because, I mean, Quaaludes were a popular thing to pop back in, the 70s and shit. Like, it was okay, I got a Quaalude.
Right, yeah. Oh, it makes sense. Brell says, let him fight. He beats okay, I went through that, and we see the fucking small TV. And he then beats the Neanderthal, who looked like he was going to win. We cut back to Rips, and Charlie says he used to train the guy, but he had to let him go because he couldn't control him. Randy's best friend here looks like Jared Padalecki from Supernatural. And Charlie says he heard that Zeus killed some guy in the ring after the bell, and he was in jail. And lots of screaming from the man, and we do learn his name is Zeus. Yeah, you do a better Zeus than I do, that's for sure.
Quite scary, actually. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be intimidating. I mean, did you think he was more intimidating as Zeus or as Debo in Friday?
Well, I don't know. You have to get past the screaming. Plus, there's another part in this movie where he starts screaming like a fucking 17-year-old girl about to get raped. That was a little distracting.
Right.
But I don't know. And Debo and Zeus, they're both really fucking frightening, to be honest.
As we can mention that he was in, he did have a little cameo at the end of The Dark Knight. Do you remember that?
The Dark Knight? No.
You remember when the Joker has everyone on the boat?
Oh, yeah, he's on the fucking boat. He's one of the inmates. Okay.
Yeah, like when I saw that first, I'm like, I know that guy, but I couldn't think of where I knew him from. And then
fucking Debo.
All the board members the next morning read the paper with Zeus on the front page. Brell comes in and says they won the hour that their show was on. One member reads the complaints they got, and Brell responds with, "They washed it, didn't they?" I wonder who he is channeling there.
That was heavy Vince McMahon. I even noticed that myself whenever he said, "Let them talk, let them say what they want. They watched it." I was like, wow, that screams Vince.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for anyone who grew up during the Attitude Era, I was 9 years old during the height of, like, Deborah and Sable and Val Venus. Like, Vince really doesn't give a fuck. I kind of respect it in some ways, but
he pushes the envelope too far, but you got to give him credit where it's due.
Yeah, I mean, I wish he still wanted to push the envelope, but he has no interest in doing that now. Week 2 takes place at a steel mill looking place, and Lugwrench Perkins, who is played by wrestler Jeep Swenson, challenges Zeus, but he gets his ass beat by Zeus. We see one of the Stooges recording the TV with a camcorder.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one that caught that. I was like, is this birthday executive boy filming the TV with his video camera? Is this fucking Stooge an idiot?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And he gives Brell an idea. I'm not really quite sure what Brell's idea was with the camcorder, but I think it was the call out they did with Rip. But the next day we see Rip heading out with Sam, and Rip once again wins in the fashion department with the blue spandex. They go to a diner and the waitress and Rip flirt with each other. I think that she might be the owner, and I do also think that Rip used to fuck her, but then I think she got fat, so he dipped out on that. Some robbers bust in and try to hold the place up. Not sure why anyone would want to try to rob a diner, but whatever. Rip throws a stool at them, and then he starts chucking pies at them and beats their ass and saves the day, flashing his rip 'em hand gesture after.
This restaurant scene is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. The bar stool, great touch. But when he starts throwing pies and desserts at a guy that's holding a gun and can clearly kill him, and then Samantha gets all googly-eyed at the end of it, like, oh, I love this pie-throwing, day-saving fuck.
You know what this was? It was like, it was Home Alone-ish type of violence all through this movie. But instead of a kid, it was a 35-year-old man. So,
and here's the part where I don't understand. Like, is it aimed towards kids? Is it aimed towards adults? Is it aimed at both? Because, you know, you clearly see Zeus choking somebody out with a fucking lug wrench trying to kill him, and then the dude's actually laying on the ground with smoke coming off of his face and around his body, and then you go to Hulk Hogan throwing pies and shit.
I think that was probably supposed to be one of those things that the kids and parents could both enjoy. I think it's probably more aimed at kids because that was Hogan's audience, especially at that time. His audience was, 5 to, 12, 13, 14-year-olds.
I guess, fair enough. I guess you have to put something in for the adults to keep their attention too.
Yeah. Now, at the hotel, we see there is only one bed. Rip tapes off half of the bed and puts a sheet up as Sam brushes her teeth in the bathroom. Sam opens her door in her bra and then asks Rip to turn the lights off. Because that's intelligent.
Yeah, that's smart. You couldn't just yell through the door first. She kind of wanted to give him a peep. She wants it too. Who's she playing?
Yeah, but those underwear she's wearing, ugh. Like, I don't know. I know it's different times and different fashions, but I don't know how.
Even during that time, that was still around when nightgowns were still the most popular kind of thing to wear to bed. To see what she's wearing, it's a step in the right direction, but holy shit, it still had some steps to take.
Sam opens the door in her bra and then asks Rip to turn the lights off. They banter a bit about her being single, and what we assume is a little while later, we see the bed moving up and down, and hear Rip panting, and I assume he is ripping the python.
Oh, yeah. Like, I immediately thought he's vigorously jerking the fuck off.
Sam moves the blanket, and we see, like, the balls of his feet. I guess it's supposed to look like his ass, but to me, it just kind of looks like two fingers. Like, I don't know what they were going for there.
Is that what that was supposed to be? The balls of his feet?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I guess. I don't know, but I don't know what else it could be.
I had to rewind that and watch it again. I was like, what? What exactly am I looking at here? It looks like upside down balls, and then it shows him working out, and I had to piece it together. I was like, okay, what were they aiming at?
Right. Rip gets back into bed after he's done, but it breaks and she slides down into his arms. She then goes to slap him before he tells her the bed broke, and then he storms off to sleep in the lobby because the couch has a better sense of humor than she does.
And she builds more walls than I ever could.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a classic line, I guess. I don't really know what to say about that. And we end up seeing that Brell is in cahoots with Sam. Brell is pissed that Sam wouldn't seduce and sleep with Rip. I'm not exactly sure how that would help him achieve his goal, whatever that is. Like, I don't know why. Do you have any clue why he would want her to fuck Rip?
To get him off his game, maybe, but I think that would maybe put him more on his game.
I racked my brain trying to think of how that benefits him, and I can't come up with any reason why that would benefit him at all.
The only thing I could think of is maybe psychological for himself, that he's able to control her to fuck Rip, but that doesn't help anybody's situation other than his own ego.
Right. She says that Rip is actually a nice guy. Brell backhands her, and there is lots of man-on-woman violence in this movie. His stooges even look a little horrified.
Especially in the next 10 minutes, there's a lot of women getting something fucked up done to them or attempted to be done to them.
Right. Sam goes and confesses everything to Rip, and he instantly forgives her because, he's a good guy.
And he's Hulk Hogan and he's trying to tap.
Oh, fuck yeah, he is, brother. They start making out on the couch after some joking, and Rip hears a sportscast, and he turns to see Zeus challenging him on TV. It's one of my favorite bits, is like the TV you don't hear, and then all of a sudden something important happens, so the TV turns on.
Yeah, you can hear the TV when the plot demands it.
Like in Batman Returns, whenever they, I went through that whole thing with him and Selena Kyle, no TV, and then all of a sudden you hear the TV whenever Batman's been accused of kidnapping that princess. It's an age-old trope. Now, Rip is in an event with children. He's teaching some how to amateur wrestle and tells them they are both winners. Participation trophy culture here before that was a thing.
Oh, yeah, those are stepping stones before it. Everybody's a winner.
Right. A helicopter approaches, and it's Brell and Zeus. Zeus has a sick Z belt buckle. Zeus and Rip face off, and Brell declares Zeus the undisputed champion after Rip refused to answer his challenge. Charlie tells Rip later on that he is proud of him for not taking the bait. We see Sam getting attacked in the parking garage, and Rip chases the guy down on his motorcycle and launches him off the front of his bike into a tree. murder. Rip comforts Sam. Yeah, he doesn't confront her. That would have been a fucked up thing.
What are you doing?
Randy and the Jared Padalecki lookalike go to watch one of Zeus's fights, and Randy looks stoned and unimpressed. Zeus wins, of course, and scares everyone away after the fight. Randy and his stooge accidentally knock Brell and his stooges over, and Brell initially says it's fine and tells his security team to let them go. The friend, because he's a dickhead, tells Brell that Randy is Rip's brother. The security guard grabs them and takes them to meet Zeus. Randy tries to fight Zeus, but Zeus beats that ass. Like, this guy is the worst friend in the world.
Seriously, and on top of that, this is the part where I was talking about where he makes this ungodly scream like he just stuck his dick in a blender on chop. Like, it's oh my God, it's horrifying. Like, why would he scream like that?
Show intensity, I guess, but that was not what he achieved.
Exactly. Like, most of his script for Zeus is nothing but screams and grunts.
Yeah.
Occasionally saying his name. Like, that's all he had to do.
Yeah, Zeus, really all he had to do was look intimidating. That was pretty much the demand.
Well, I mean, he nailed his mark. He was pretty intimidating for the time. I mean, late 80s, early 90s, that'd scare the shit out of a little kid.
Right. Now, at Randy's bedside in the hospital, Rip talks to Randy, and this is where I'd say it was actually pretty decent acting for Hogan here. Brell announces the Rip versus Zeus match, and we get Zeus training montage. And we see Rip helping Randy with his physical therapy, and we see Brell and his stooges have a plan. I have to go back, though, because I skipped over this paragraph. Before that, Rip shows up at Zeus's gym where Zeus has a ring with his name on it, a big neon Z, and pictures of Rip everywhere. And Brell telling Zeus taunts that Rip says about him. And then Rip destroys the gym, and he finishes it off by throwing a barbell and hitting it in the lens of the security camera. Perfect.
The fucking accuracy of throwing that fucking weight bar into the camera lens. He should have been a javelin throw in the Olympics.
Right. Now, that's where I thought that maybe that was the idea that the guy gave him with the video camera and insults that Rip never said, but, Brell claims that he said.
Right.
We get the training montage, and then we see everyone arriving for the fight. Security guards block Sam in the elevator, and he plans to use her to make, and Brell plans to use Sam to make Rip throw the fight to Zeus. We see the studio audience dressed up in tuxedos and ball gowns, and this, to me, is no doubt the kind of a crowd a certain wrestling promoter wishes he could attract to his events.
Mm-hmm. Like a boxing match.
Yeah, it was off-putting to me when I saw all these people dressed in tuxes and gowns and stuff. I was like, what?
This is not what WWF was drawing in, buddy, no matter how much you wanted it to. This is not the crowd you were getting.
Right. They're going to be fighting in an 8-sided ring, which is very UFC of them. Zeus and Rip face off and the bell sounds. Zeus dominating him. And my favorite line is when Randy says, "Come on, Rip, try."
Yeah, he's clearly not trying. And Zeus coming out to the ring looks like a dollar store version of a fucking Black Power Ranger.
Yeah, he doesn't look very good at all.
Oh, it's fucking awful. It's like a toned down version of Shao Kahn. Like, it looks terrible.
Sam is able to make a stealth escape from the room she's being held in while her captors watch the fight. Rip starts to make a comeback. The Stooges run after her while the action continues in the ring, with Zeus taking control once again. As Sam goes to exit the elevator, the guards try to grab her again, but she is saved by Charlie and Randy's dickhead friend. Zeus rips off a ring post and tries to put it through Rip's fucking head, but he moves.
Just as violent, man. Like, I will say that at least they didn't have him just pull the ring post out. He didn't just rip it. He was actually trying to teeter it. Like, Jesus, the violence in this man. That was actually a strong part.
Yeah, he was definitely going for the kill. He wasn't trying to put him out of commission. He was trying to
Trying to
put him
end him.
put him in the ground. Just as it seems Rip is about to be finished off, he sees Sam and Randy. Randy trying to move, which gives him renewed strength. Rip then starts making another comeback on Zeus and delivers an axe handle smash. Zeus then takes control and attempts to flee. Zeus knocks Rip down the studio stairs and thinks he won, but Rip comes back while Brel destroys the studio control room in a fit of rage.
I don't understand that. Why is he destroying his broadcast? He even said it earlier. They watched it. Let them talk. This is probably the highest ratings you've ever had in your life. Why are you destroying your broadcast at this point?
Because he's a fucking idiot, and I think one of the Stooges or someone said, it might have been one of the not the Stooges, but one of the other guys said, well, if Rip wins, then there's no more Tough Man. Like, you're done, kind of thing. So maybe, but it's kind of like trying to give logic to an illogical situation.
Yeah, I guess.
Rip comes back while Brel destroys the studio control room, and Rip then knocks Zeus off the platform of the studio, sending him through the ring. Killing him? I don't know, maybe. Rip then turns his attention to Brel. Rip approaches Brel, but Brel backs up into some live wires he pulled from the equipment. So he killed himself there.
He killed himself, and his final word was jockass.
Right, yeah.
Like, for fuck's sake.
One more for the drinking game.
Right.
The title song plays, and we get the Rip 'em hand signal and a freeze frame of Rip, and the credits roll.
What an abrupt ending. Yeah, it was like after everything that just happened, we're going to get the Rip 'em sign, and then credits. Oh, boy.
Yeah, that was something. The positive, it has that 80s feel about it. Hogan has some decent moments, and I do like the guy that plays Brel, Kurt Fuller.
He goes on to make a lot of movies that I like. I can't think of any off the top of his head, but God, I've seen him in so many other things. Wasn't he in Howard Stern's Private Parts?
I think so. I haven't seen that in a long time, but it would be about right. He was the mortician in what the fuck's that? Psych.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Woody. Yeah, he's been in a lot of shit. He's been around forever. But the negatives, most everything else. The story is weak. It drags. Sam seems to be the only one giving a fuck besides Hogan and Fuller. Too much bathroom humor, and that bar scene is just fucking disgusting.
Oh, that bar scene, especially whenever he's peeping at dude's dick. Like oh,
teeny
man.
Wainers.
Teeny Wainers. Like, why is he peeping at penises to begin with?
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's where they came up with hackers, though.
Yeah, it very well could be. I mean, you could say the Brawl for All, they started like in the 98, they started their own Tough Man sort of competition. It was a pay-per-view Brawl for All. They abruptly ended it because people were getting hurt and shit. And, it's kind of hard to have real fighting in a fake sport.
For sure.
Overall, this is not a good movie. It's entertaining and unintentionally funny in some spots. But if you grew up with Hogan as a hero, it reminds you of a time when everything was kind of pure and innocent. I do give it a thumbs in the middle for kind of nostalgic purposes.
I would give it a thumbs up, even though it definitely shows its age. It's pretty hard to watch at some points, but it does have its redeeming qualities. Like you said, it's early Hogan, it's late 80s. If you grew up with Hogan and if you were a kid just wanting to have more Hogan in your life, watching this movie, it'd be a treat.
Oh, for sure. There is quite a bit of aftermath to this, though. Zeus would come to the WWF and feud with Hogan, claiming that he was the real star of the movie and not Hogan. Also revealing that Hogan, for real, broke his nose during that last fight sequence. They had a tag team match at SummerSlam 1989, with Hulk Hogan teaming with Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Zeus teaming with Macho Man Randy Savage. It was the biggest buy rate in SummerSlam history with 625,000 buys, and it would hold that record until SummerSlam 1998, with that show getting 700,000 buys. It is still third all-time behind the 98 SummerSlam and SummerSlam 2005, which featured Hogan versus Shawn Michaels in the main event. And that one pulled in 650,000, so it's only third by 25,000, which is not bad.
It's kind of interesting that they would pick Macho Man to be Zeus's tag partner. I think for an intimidating tag team match with Hogan and Brutus, wouldn't you want to make it like Zeus and Sid Vicious?
He was probably, but Sid was still in WCW, and Hogan was feuding with Macho Man at the time. That was right after the Mega Powers exploded.
Oh, I see.
I mean, I think that Hogan could have teamed with anybody besides Brutus Beefcake, but whatever. I mean, I'm not a Brutus fan, so
I don't mind. I liked Brutus. He was one of my favorites, especially whenever he was. I remember him doing all the barbershop like talks that he would do. That was a big one for me whenever I seen Shawn Michaels throw Marty Jannetty through that fucking window during one of Brutus's little segments.
Oh yeah, that launched his career. That made him a superstar.
But whenever Brutus was with Hogan, I liked it, especially when he was with the Mouth. What was his fucking name? Jimmy
Hart, the Mouth of the
Jimmy Hart.
South.
Oh yeah, that trio right there was great. I loved it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I watched back then, but I don't have like it's foggy memories. Like I've always known who Hulk Hogan was, even though I haven't always watched wrestling. I always knew that who Hogan was, but I don't know. I just don't like. I don't like him Not I've never met him, obviously, but I don't like things that I've heard about him. He just seems kind of like a dickhead in real life.
Oh, really? That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, the only reason he really is a wrestler is because he was good friends with Hogan when they were kids. Like Hogan's known him forever, so it's like, well, you're kind of only here because of Hogan. Like,
It kind of does take a step back and take a look at Hogan himself. Like a lot of people say that he's an asshole in real life. Regardless what you say about Terry, Hulk Hogan touched the heart of millions.
Oh, he definitely did. And Zeus did appear on and off WWF TV, and his last shot with them was No Holds Barred, the match, the movie, where if you ordered it on pay-per-view after Christmas 1989, 2 days after Christmas, you would get the movie and a steel cage tag team match with the same participants as a SummerSlam match. I did watch both matches in preparation for this, and neither are really any good, but they are both a spectacle. And that's really what they were aiming for. I mean, back then, nobody really cared how like good or bad the matches were, but you just wanted to see Hogan, pretty much.
And that's another thing, that going back to what I said at the very beginning, just watching old matches of Hogan, the matches aren't really anything over the top. Like there's no swanton bombs, there's no chairs, there's no Hell in the Cell. There's just this fucking energy watching these matches from the crowd and from the wrestlers. Like it's a different kind of wrestling.
Oh, definitely is. And we do celebrate the late 80s and early 90s in wrestling a lot. But this 1989 was really the last of the glory period. It was the biggest year they had until 1998. And after 89, all the business metrics went down. Hogan lost the WWF Championship to the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6 on April 1st, 1990, even though he would win it back from heel Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7. The true glory days for Hulk Hogan for this run were at least over. He would lose the title he won from Slaughter in 91. He lost, as you mentioned earlier, to The Undertaker at Survivor Series 91. He then won it back at this Tuesday in Texas 6 days later, but he threw ashes in the face of The Undertaker, and he held the title for like a day or two or whatever, and then Jack Tunney declared it vacant. And then it was put on the line at the 92 Rumble, and Ric Flair would win that. And then Hogan would face Sid at WrestleMania 8 in 92. Hogan, I think it ended in disqualification or countout or something. And then Hogan was gone until 93. Hogan came back in January 93. He and Brutus went for the tag team titles against Money Inc. at WrestleMania 9. They lost, but Hogan came out after Yokozuna defeated Bret Hart, and Hogan defeated Yokozuna in like 45 seconds to win the title again.
Oh, I remember that. That was one of those awesome WrestleManias that my dad had bought. And yeah, I just watched Bret Hart get his ass kicked. And then all comes Hero Hogan to kick the shit out of Yokozuna and take the title back.
Right. He did. He won the title, and then he lost at King of the Ring, and then he was done. We wouldn't see Hogan in the WWF again until 2002. I mean, I don't think anyone probably at the time thought that, but the next year in June of 84, he signed with World Championship Wrestling, and he would ironically have another huge run in the mid to late 90s as part of the heel faction, the NWO, which was for rival WCW, owned by media mogul Ted Turner. And the early 90s, like 91 and 92-ish, were marred by the steroid scandal, and Hogan's image did take a hit, but so did the WWF's business. But we're here to celebrate Hulk Hogan, and this movie is kind of the ultimate testament to that, because he portrayed exactly what he wanted to portray on the WWF shows all those years. The hero who stands up for morals and everything he believes in, and that is what Terry Bollea, the man, and despite what Terry Bollea, the man, may think or believe in, despite all the negative things he has said or done, for someone of my generation to dislike Hogan, it's pretty hard. Last week, as we're recording, a week before release, he was on the Monday Night Raw reunion, and he was the one I was most looking forward to seeing besides Stone Cold, and Hogan got the biggest reaction besides Stone Cold.
That's really awesome to hear that people can forgive him. I know there was a lot of racist shit. I know that there's like a scandal with he was cheating on his wife, but I mean, that's not for us to really look into unless you really want to dive into who Terry is. Like it's all for show. It's exactly what Vince McMahon calls it. It's entertainment.
Yes. And yeah, he has been forgiven by a lot of people. Some people still hold it against him, but it's all personal. I think he has paid his sins or his atonement, whatever you want to say. I think he's paid his time. And you may not like Hogan, the character, or Terry Bollea, the man, but he has left an impression on millions. And his place in wrestling and pop culture history is secure. And Hulkamania will run wild for future generations to come. It's nothing else you can say about it.
That is true. And just like you said, as much as you can, if you can't stand Hulkamania, if you can't stand Terry, there's nothing you can do about it because, like I said earlier, he touched the hearts of millions. You can't kill Hulkamania. It's still going to go. It's going to run wild.
It definitely is. Now, would you mind hanging out while I reveal what we're going to be doing the next few weeks?
Absolutely.
Next week, I'm going to be reviewing. Now, we're in, just about mid-August. It's hot, and, high school football is coming up, which I played. Well, air quotes played very loosely. So I'm going to be reviewing the high school football classic Varsity Blues next week. Now, the week after that, I had some weird teachers when I was in school. I assume you did as well, TeeKay?
Oh, let's not even get started with that.
Now, I'm going to be reviewing a movie with some real far-out teachers, The Faculty.
Oh, Jon Stewart. Love it.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know. I watched it in January. There's a lot of people in that movie. I hadn't watched it in a long time, probably since the mid-2000s. And I was like, holy fuck, all these people who ended up becoming famous. Usher's in it.
He's one of the football players, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, no shit. I didn't even make that connection.
A real baby looking Usher.
That's when he was probably still singing My Way and Nice and Slow.
Yeah. And then after that, you're going to be joining me for our review of Total Recall.
Oh, I can't wait. One of my favorite movies as a kid, used to freak me the fuck out. Can't wait for Total Recall. It's been a while.
Hell yeah. And then after that, I'm going to be doing probably my most ambitious undertaking on the podcast yet. Gonna review the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And that's going to take us all the way through September and all the way through October. Going to review all the Nightmare on Elm Street 1 through 7, and then Freddy vs. Jason.
Yes.
And I'm not reviewing the remake because that doesn't take place in our cassette timeline. So fuck that noise, and it's awful, and I don't wanna.
I haven't subjected myself to watching that bastardized rendition.
Are you still there? You still there?
Yeah, I had a phone call. They called. I had to end that real fast.
Yeah, we're just about done, but yeah, it's not good. But yeah, we're gonna be doing, all. If you don't like horror movies or if you don't like Nightmare on Elm Street, you're not gonna want to listen. That's September through October because we're doing them all. And Freddy vs. Jason goes there because Freddy vs. Jason's more of an Elm Street movie than a Friday the 13th, in my opinion.
And it's funny you mention that because I never really looked at it on the point of whose movie would it be? Would it be more of a Jason movie? Would it be more of a Freddy movie? But it really is more of a Nightmare on Elm Street movie because it takes more liberties from the Nightmare franchise than what it really does with Jason.
Right, and we will get into that and why that is, because there's a very good reason for that. And we'll get into that. That's what you call a little teaser. But I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Leighton Cassette. And thank you, TeeKay, for coming on.
Hey, I appreciate it. It's always a fun time.
Hell yeah. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter and on Facebook. And thank you for joining me on this edition of the Leighton Cassette Podcast.